flirting is okay. Like, is flirting fine? Oh, come on, you're making a big deal out of it. Who cares? Or is flirting really devastating to the relationship? Stay tuned. It's really fun. We're back. We're back. Hi, guys. This is Leah Richeimer with the Ladies Talk Show. I know I sound like a frog. I am not a frog. I promise you. Does it sound kind of weird? Like, who am I? Who is that lady? But anyway, exactly. Who's that voice? It's gonna take nothing away from this powerful, powerful show. We got so much email and so many shares and things like that from our betrayal number one. This is betrayal. Coping with betrayal, not how to betrayal. How to not betray. Okay. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna quickly reiterate. You have got to watch one because coping with betrayal part one will help you to answer this first question that we're going to start with today, because we only answered half of it last time. We're answering it the other half here. If you watch that one independently and this one independently, it's fine, but you'll get more out of it if you watch that one. But here's what we're dealing with. Couple, both wonderful host and hostess, a wonderful family. All the kids are the same ages or approximate same ages. So, sometimes you have people over and like the kids just like are quiet, like the one's playing a board game. Well, I don't know if this ever really happens. This is a fantasy. But anyway, you get kids the same age. It's kind of nice. So the wife asked the question. She said, it's really lovely, but at the actual dinner, my husband is like flirting with this lady. I mean, And she said in the question, right? You have the question. Oh, I don't know if you got the notes there, but anyway, in the question, she said something like, "It's when I told him about it, he blew a gasket." He was like, "Are you kidding? Like, what do you think of? Like, who do you think I am? That I'm flirting with her? That I'm interested in her? That's like ridiculous." Like, he didn't even hear it. So what we dealt with last time was part one. We dealt with the two issues. And one issue, what does she do? The other issue is, what does she do about his blowing a gasket? So she can't even tell him now. She said, I'm stuck in a situation where I can't even tell him. I can't talk to him about it because he blew a gasket. Fine. Is this clear? Everybody understand where we're hoping?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So good. So here's the situation. Last time, and again, if you want to get it expounded upon, or if this is an issue for you guys, for sure have to watch. But what we talked about the fact that family, that nice family where all the kids play nicely and the husband and wife and the other husband and wife, they all get along or whatever, they can never, not ever, ever, ever come to their house again. And we discussed lots of reasons why and how and whatever. It's like asking for trouble. It's like, how you want a lesson on how to damage your marriage and how to undermine the trust in your relationship? Have them over again. So what we discussed is ways to, kind of avoid it. And actually a lot of people, a lot of Instagrammers, you guys put in some great input about how, you say, oh, my family, we need more family time. Make something up. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is your marriage, not whether they think you're nice enough or not. Okay, so that's square one. That was the first half of the question. The other half of the question we're going to answer right now. And that is this, that you have a husband, when she brought it up, she said, at her words, he blew a gasket. Okay. For those of you who don't know, does anyone know what blow a gasket is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What's blowing a gasket? Yeah. What is it? It's like.
Is it? It's well. Yeah.
Super annoyed.
Yeah.
Defensive.
Yeah.
You're losing it. Totally losing it. Okay. Yeah. So he blew a gasket. Now, here's what, wifey, if you're listening to this show, you better be, because I'm answering your question. Okay. But here's your thing that you need to think about. He blew a gasket. Did he blow a gasket because he's being unreasonable and dramatic, or is it because he's threatened, because how you might have said it to him, because of how you handled it? Now, probably all of those, all of the above, you'd tick off. Yeah, all of those. Okay. So, but you have to think about, okay, I want to get a communication over to him, which is not easy to hear. If he said it to you, you might have to blow a gasket. If he said, I think you're flirting with that guy too much, you'd be like, What do you don't trust me? Like, are you serious? You don't trust me after all we've been through? You would be defensive also. So can everybody understand me? I feel like I'm like talking through a squeaky balloon or something.
You're the masking now. You're basically, your voice is masked. You're anonymous.
I'm anonymous. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you
this
mean
is what
like
it sounds like for Get Real with
Leah
guests.
Also, I brought this in case I go into a coughing fit. I'm going to chug this whole thing. And he told me, hey, that's got alcohol. Hey.
Yes,
I'm like, wait a second. It's this new look, alcohol free. Okay, so we're good. But as he said, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. You can have a cocktail. Anyway, okay. So if I drink this, you'll know what's going on. Why, whatever. And by the way, for those of you who don't know this trick, it's really awesome. You take this and you take a little bit of that, you put water, and you just, it stops the coughing. Like if you're having a coughing fit, instead of chugging coughing syrup, which makes you drowsy and you can't drive, and all these other great stuff. Okay, you didn't know you're going to get household tips here. Right. Okay, so anyway, back to the thing. So if he handled it badly, you also would react badly. There would be no part of you that would feel like, oh, he's doing that because he loves me so much and he feels like, he wants to be close to me. No, you would feel like he doesn't trust me. He doesn't think that I'm smart enough to not, do that, whatever. You would be defensive too. So what do we do? So first of all, you have to think about in your own head, right, before you even open your mouth about it to your husband. I mean, for her, she already did it and he blew a gasket. So, but for people who have been thinking about, should I say something? Should I not say something? The answer is say something. You definitely say something. This has got to be confronted and it's got to be stopped like right away. It's never okay. I open the question, is it okay to flirt? It is never, not ever okay to flirt. And some women, they feel like, well, if I flirt and another guy's paying attention to me, maybe my husband will love me more. Maybe my husband will, treat me better. Maybe he'll realize, hey, if he doesn't treat me right, I could have somebody else. No. What that does is undermine a husband's self-esteem and his confidence. The minute you do that, when he's like feeling not so good about himself or feeling like you could leave him, or if a husband isn't totally bulletproof that you're like, you love him and think he's the best thing ever and you never leave him, without knowing that, a husband always is a little bit on edge. He's always like, what could be in my life? And that does not make him love you more. It doesn't make him treat you better. It doesn't make him take care of you better. It makes him scared to get vulnerable. And if he feels scared about, if you've made him feel insecure, then his reaction is going to be exactly the opposite of what you want. Exactly the opposite. So if you want him to like dote on you and to cherish you and to look up to you and say, hi, I just wanted to hear your voice. You want that kind of behavior from him? Make him feel so secure that he can do those kinds of things that puts him in a kind of a vulnerable state. But if he knows you're solid, he'll do that stuff. If you're making him feel jealous and flirting with this one and, whatever, it's always going to backfire and it's going to get you the opposite of what you want. Is this clear?
Yeah. Yes. Flirting is never innocent.
Never innocent, never good, never, no, bad, wrong. Okay. So now here's how you can present it to him in a way that he can hear it. You want to think about, first of all, have you ever done this before? Is this the first time? Is it whatever? If you start by we need a little heart, Yeah. I always tell you to get me the props. And then she says, should I buy it? I'm like, what do we need a heart prop? But anyway, okay, a heart prop. I need a little heart. Anyway, if you take your heart in a communication, you put it first, things always tend to work out. So instead of saying, you do this, and you did that, and you made me feel this way, and blah, 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 if you start with a heart and you say, you mean so much to me. I love being with you. When you're talking to another woman, already my ears are perking up and I'm like, that's my guy, because I'm possessive of you. Why? Because I love you and I want to spend eternity with you, and I'm going to spend eternity with you, God willing, If you present it that way, he will listen to it. Then you say, but the thing is, when you're talking to another girl, I don't feel comfortable. And most women keep, a little bit of a nice boundary, a nice, distance or whatever, like, oh yes, she moves her chair closer to you. She laughs her head off. She stares at you like this, where her husband's sitting right there. I feel horrible for her husband. she can't, I can't have her in my house. My job, the job that you want me to have is to protect you and our family. That's why you married me. You married me so that I could keep our home beautiful. With good food, nice, warm sweaters for everybody, blankets on the couches if we need to cuddle up. I mean, that's my job, is to make this place safe and cozy. And I see she doesn't do that. So, like that. If you can see, if you think about it ahead of time, there is a conversation you can have directly with your husband that can get him to hear this properly and in a way that he'll be on board and he won't blow a gasket. Okay? Is there any questions on this?
No, that's
Clear?
good.
Okay, fine. Let's go to the next question. Let me just make sure I covered all my points on that, because this is a crucial thing, and I've gotten this question many times. So, for the lady who blew, I'm so glad I looked at my notes, because the lady who blew the husband blew the gasket, the one I'm answering this for. So for most of the answer has been for if this ever happens, here's how to handle it. But if it's already happened and he's already blown a gasket, the issue is, in this situation, even if you're right about it and he got super defensive and you really worked hard to try and say it nicely, the only way to get back to harmony with this and to reopen the conversation is to go to him and apologize for how you handled it. Now you're going to say, Leah, are you serious? Like, I said it so super nicely. I thought about it for 3 days, how I should say it in a nice way. I talked to my sister about it, or maybe you should talk to your sister about it. I talked to a friend who doesn't know the other people, or whatever it is, and I presented it, and he just flew off the handle. Apologize anyway. It's your way back in, both to handle it, to get the conversation started again, and to once and for all just say, the reason I'm doing this and my motivation to do this is to protect our family. Has nothing to do with trust of you. I could trust you a million years. I don't trust her. It's like, when you're going around and your teenage kid takes the keys and is driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like, he's like, what, you don't trust me? I'm like, I trust you. I don't trust the drunk drivers out there. Are you out of your mind? Like, not happening. So yes, I totally trust you. I don't trust her. I don't know what's going on in their marriage. Frankly, I am embarrassed. I feel bad for her husband. Like, she's sitting here, paying attention to you. Her husband is sitting there like that. Okay, fine. Let's just see. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, I had another case. So I had this woman, this guy, he was a widow, right? He lost his wife. They were empty nesters at the time or whatever. So, and he lived right up the street from them. And he remembered all the kids' birthdays, right? I don't know. We all need something like this, He remembered all the kids' birthdays, brought stuff over. He was, every time he came for Shabbos, he never came empty-handed. Wine, chocolates, whatever, flowers. He always. So he was kind of like a little bit part of the family. The wife said to her husband, I just don't like the way he looks at me. The husband's like, are you out of your mind? Like, come on, what do you mean he looks at you? You're a beautiful woman. I just don't like the way he looks at me. So she was embarrassed to ask the rabbi. Anyway, so she asked me to ask the rabbi for her. So I called up the rabbi, and the rabbi said, that man can never set foot in their house again. Is the man insane? Is he insane? Is he playing with fire? He may think it's nothing. A woman has B'nai Asera, what is that? Women's intuition. Okay? She knows, get the guy out of the house, widow. He said what she could do is she could, call around to her friends and say, perfectly nice guy, whatever. It's a personality issue with one of my kids. You can always blame your kids. We have a Gemara for this, okay? There's a source for this, okay? You can blame your kids on this kind of stuff if it helps bring shalom bayis into the home. Guaranteed, if you don't believe me, ask a local Orthodox Rav, ask somebody, your clergy, find out whether, but basically you can blame your kids, not meanly and not making them look horribly bad. But anyway, so she had to, tell her husband, that's it. This is what the rabbi said. We cannot have that man in. And that's how it is. You have to protect your family. Flirting is never okay. Okay, let's go to the next question. I think we got it. Sarit, you're on. Question,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so Actually, this is from Ahuva K. Hi, Ahuva, who's actually on Instagram right now.
Thank
We
you,
are.
Ahuva.
Last week, you ended off with a question, and we weren't able to address it, so we are addressing it now. Is it possible that the woman is showing kindness rather than flirting with the other husband, and that she's unaware that she's being flirted with? She's just responding in a very innocent, kind way, and not necessarily flirting back.
So, good question, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It is never, ever innocent. Ever, ever, ever innocent. So I get it, Ahuva. I get what you're saying, but it's not that she's oblivious. It's that she is making herself oblivious. In other words, she has a huge, we as women, as wives, have a huge responsibility to have a boundary around ourselves that only our husband gets inside of, okay? There's a boundary around us. We're Mrs. So-and-so, Mrs. Richeimer, Mrs. whatever. There's a boundary. So if she doesn't realize, well, I don't think so. No, that means she didn't have her boundaries up. What is wrong? She needs to work on that. This is something that she's got to protect her home. She's got to protect herself. She's got to protect, look, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, will attack in your weakest place. And if you think, well, it's nothing, and if you aren't vigilant, it's going to bite you. It'll come out and bite you when you least expect it. Maybe your husband's away on a trip. Maybe your husband, has been mean to you he's going through a lot of stress at work. He's selling the business. You're going bankrupt. God, it shouldn't happen to anybody, but, you're having whatever family crisis that we all have, right? And your husband isn't treating you so well. And then this guy who he was flirting with me, and this guy starts, being nice to you. Who knows what can happen if you let your boundaries down? So I totally hear what you're saying. She didn't realize it. She better start realizing it. And we, as women, have to protect our family. Look, it's very hard to ask somebody to do something when they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you're doing something for somebody else. You're doing it for your husband. You're doing it because you should. You're doing it for God because God told you should do it. It's good to be a good person, but let's face it. If we don't have self-motivation, there's a little bit of, inability to act, inability to do the tough things. But if you understand, having that boundary is so crucial to your husband feeling safe and strong and confident and powerful, which gives him the ability to take care of you better. Okay, so chalk it up. Check mark. Yes, you want to be taken care of more. This is a way to do it. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect your husband, so that your husband can be there for you in a way that's deep and meaningful and exactly what we all want from our husband. And if you don't want that from your husband, send me a little note, send me an email, because for 60 years, we've been taught, I'm independent, I don't need my husband, okay? I always say this, I'm not bashing the women's movement. It gave us all a lot of freedom, a lot of choices. It's done a lot of amazing things. But it took away this thought of interdependence with a husband and wife, and that we need our husband needs us, and that is a tragedy because we think, the highest plateau is if you're independent and you can do everything on your own, and it's not true. It's a lie, and that's why there's this sense of mourning of that loss of just being, like this, that's that. And when you're really depending on someone, and you ever play that game, where when you're a little kid and you stand there and someone
trust,
behind you, and it's called trust? The
Yeah.
trust game, that's so cool. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
'cause you fall back
and you
and then
fall
they
back
catch
on somebody, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But once you do it with somebody, and then you trust them, it's like, oh, gosh, it feels so good to, have somebody there. So good to have somebody there. So this is the secret of this kind of protection. You're building that kind of trust in the relationship. Okay, good. Let's go to the next.
Okay, so we have actually Nurse Cap who asked, beside putting a live camera on yourself, how can you ensure your husband that you are behaving properly?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, Nurse Cap, that's meaning that when you're not around him, because she's saying putting a live camera.
So ask her.
Yeah.
Is that, you mean when you're with him or when you're not with him?
Right, meaning when you're not with him, is he worried that you're being...
So you're hitting on an interesting issue, which is the issue of some husbands are a little too controlling. You know, like they look at their phone and, you know, they take the wife's phone. They won't let her see his phone. So they won't let her see his phone, but he wants to see her phone. You know, there's all kinds of control issues which are not okay. You know, we should be able to tell your husband, don't look at, there's something on, you know, there should be privacy. I mean, maybe we should do a show about that because there's a lot of issues in there.
Yes.
But in any case,
she said yes when I'm at work. That's
when
what
she's
I
at work.
Meaning
and does your husband not trust you, or you don't trust yourself?
Yeah. Well, it looks like, I mean, obviously that her husband must feel that she might be
too flirty
or doing things at work that he's not so comfortable with.
I would talk to him and I would say, listen, you know, I never really realized how crucial boundaries are to our loyalty and trust with each other. And for whatever reason, you've gotten the feeling. Maybe he saw you, you know, at a function or at a Shabbos table, something. He saw you and you were doing something that he didn't particularly like. So, you know, you could come to him and say, you know, I've been thinking about what you said to me about trusting me when I'm not around, whatever. And you know what? I really think you're right. I've been thinking about it, and I really think you're right. That's going to be my new thing I'm going to work on, because I think you're right. Do you know how much a man loves to hear, I think you're right?
Yes.
Hello, right? You're a man, right? Hello. We got an art sound engineer. You know, so I really think you're right, and say, I'm going to be more vigilant about it. And then you can even say, you know, I was walking down the thing, and one of my colleagues said, oh, I've got some, you know, someone sent me some chocolates. You want some for my office? I didn't go into his office to grab a chocolate. I mean, I know that would have been dumb and whatever, and they looked delicious, but I didn't go because I felt like, you know, it would mean something to you if I didn't do that. Tell him your little triumphs, unless you think it's going to make him jealous or think you're weird or make him less like, well, then if you're only telling me those things, what are the things you're not telling me? You have to know your husband to know what's going to really bolster that. But the more, you know, this isn't just like this flimsy, these are bricks. We need bricks. Yeah. Oh, rocks. I've got rocks. You know, we're building a real fortress around ourselves.
You're building a wall.
Building a wall, real wall. That's very crucial. And we have many sources for this. And what does it mean when I say, oh, we've got many sources for that? It means that we've got a 3,000-year-old track record that works. It means that it's not like, oh, maybe try this at home. You know, I tried this once and it worked. No, this is 3,000 years bulletproof plan that will work for you. So you build a fortress around you, keep other people, you know. And does that mean, like, you know, you're sitting in a situation and a guy, you know, is giving a talk, he's giving a devar Torah at the Shabbos table, and there's 20 people at the table, and he's just staring at you. He's just like looking at you and telling it to you. And if you look down and then you look up and he's still telling it to you, everyone in our audience is beautiful, okay? So he's telling it to you. Say, just get up and go to the bathroom. Go into the kitchen and help to serve the chicken. Get out of the situation. It's not okay. It's not okay whether your husband's there or not. It doubly isn't if he's there watching you and he's feeling that pain of like, who's this guy? What does he want with my wife? Get me out of here. But even when he's not there, this is the wall you're building. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think it's...
Yeah. Okay, if you have more, bring them on. Okay, what's the next? What's the next one, Sarit?
Yeah. Okay, so I have the same issue. It's not.
Oh, this is an email follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, this is an email one. It's not that my husband is flirting, but rather he feels that he's being Mr. Chesed, Mr. Do-Gooder, speaking to a single woman who's at a simcha dinner party alone to make her feel included. Before you know it, she and my husband are engaged in an intense conversation that does not include me. Sometimes she will even move her seat closer to him. Sometimes I'll nudge him to let him know I'm feeling ignored, but then later he'll say that I'm being ridiculous. He was just trying to get to know the other person and being friendly. I feel very rejected every time. What should I do?
That's so sad.
Yeah.
ladies who are listening to this, use this is how a wife is feeling. If you find yourself in the situation where you do this to your husband, so basically to summarize the thing is her husband is like gloms onto a single person at their table at these events and ignores her completely. So here's the thing. When something happens in the marriage where you are so right and your husband is so wrong, as in this particular case, okay? Like always, okay? When you're really right, it's so tempting to smash the guy, to just like let him have it because it's, he deserves it and you're right. And there's not much you can say and he get him defensive or whatever. So here's the secret to this one. You gotta really think it through. How are you going to present it to him? Because you're just totally right. So first thought is to think about getting in his head. He says, and there's probably a lot of truth to it, the reason he's doing what he's doing is for chesed, is for kindness, is an act of kindness that he's doing to this poor single woman. Everyone else is with their spouse. It's tough enough that they spend all their days and nights by themselves at home in their own place by themselves, whatever. But on top of it, now they have to come to an event and sort of sit there and twiddle their thumbs and have no one to talk to. So if you try, the very, 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 very first step is getting inside his head so you can understand and have pity, have compassion. What's the word I'm looking for? Compassion, sympathy, empathy. That's the word. And you can have empathy for where he's holding. You want to be able to understand, because once you do that, now he's going to listen to you. Because you're not just like, you're flirting with her, you're there.
I think he's going to listen to you if you tell him that soon enough he'll be single just like her. And he'll feel what that feels like.
Yeah, there you go.
If he keeps it up, you will be in her position. And then,
right.
And then you can talk
as you want. Right, thank you. Good. Right. What did you say? That what?
No, and she won't approach him to talk to him when he's single.
Right. Yeah, exactly. She won't help him. He'll be stuck by himself.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I wouldn't try that approach. Do not try this at home.
That's a reach approach. Sorry.
That's a reach approach. That's a reach approach. Okay, so here's the thing. You wanna first understand where he's coming from. Now, then when you're talking to him, you can, from a genuine place, when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes or whatever, you can empathizing with them and cognitively. Then when you're interacting with them and your communication with them, it comes across totally different. You're saying, and you can praise him for, I really get it. I really get what you're trying to do. And it means the world to me that you are that person. Like you could just be caring about yourself and, talking about your, whatever. You could just be all about me. So I really admire that in you. Then he's open to hearing what you have to say, which is, the only thing is, it comes at a cost to me. He'll be able to hear that, hopefully. Okay, let me give you some tips on. Okay, hold on a sec. He said you're feeling ridiculous. I want to address that because
I just don't understand in that situation. But why are they in a situation where they're sitting together and she's not sitting next to the woman and he's sitting there? Meaning, like, if there's a single girl and there's a chesed to do, I'll talk to her as a female.
Oh, as a female.
Meaning, why does my husband have to worry about making her feel good? I'm a woman. I could talk to her also. Like, just so weird.
That's a good point.
Like,
well, it could be that he's more gregarious and more social and more whatever, and she's more quiet and reserved.
Yeah,
it could just be a personality thing.
Yeah.
And he just feels, and also probably, he's with his wife all the time, and so this is his opportunity to sort of have social interaction with other people, and also if he, I know that. Sometimes if you're interacting with somebody and you feel like you can help them, a single person, maybe he's a businessman and he's helping her with her business. Some people just want to give. Right. And that's where I see him. He just wants to give. If it's at the expense of his wife, he thinks she's being ridiculous. Right.
Correct.
He doesn't understand the expense of his wife is he's throwing her under her bus. Again, she's totally right. He's totally wrong. How to get him to see that is not by saying, you're totally right. Wrong. I'm right. That's not the way. But for instance, if he he's thinking she's ridiculous. Now, when I hear this from women, my husband thinks I'm ridiculous, it's a sign you haven't clarified well enough to him what you're going through. He thinks it's ridiculous because you're a woman, you're from a different planet, and he doesn't understand why you would think that way. You got to tell him. You got to say, I know you think I'm ridiculous, but even if you think I'm ridiculous, like if you were doing something I thought was ridiculous, like before you leave the house, every time you have to go and check every lock of every door and make sure every light's on, well, that's a good idea. What would be something that a woman would think would be ridiculous? Come on.
Ridiculous about what her husband's doing?
Her husband's doing. He's
Her
doing
husband's
something.
doing that's ridiculous?
Let's say they get in the car and they drive down the street. He's like, did I lock the front door? Let's say he's got OCD or something like that. Nothing wrong with whatever, And she thinks he's being ridiculous. He goes, parks again, and of course, it's locked again. So she says, you're being ridiculous. So she could say, even if you think I'm being ridiculous, it's still your obligation to take care of me. Just like if I thought you were ridiculous because you kept going back, I would sit in the car and just say, okay, whatever, this is how it is. So we have to, live with each other's ridiculousness, and that's just the way it is. So that's not an answer that I'm being ridiculous, so now the behavior can continue as exactly as it is. So if she explains that to him in a loving manner, that can be very helpful, because then he might be annoyed, but he's like, he can't argue with it. It's like, yeah, I guess that's kind of true.
Well,
so,
CSH said, I feel like when you continue with the but, it's not as easily accepted, because I feel like the compliments get squashed overall. When you're saying, you're
being such a mensch.
Yeah, I hear you. I see where you're coming from. I'm so but
yeah,
blah blah blah.
That's good. That's
They're waiting for the bombshell.
Let's think of another
without
the other shoe
a
to drop.
Yeah.
Because I feel like where you're coming from is a good place. How can I express my feelings to you in a way that you can hear them? You could say something like that. Mm-hmm. You could say, there's no way around this, but. Does anyone think of an idea?
I wish for the future, instead of but, to say I wish it could be more like this in the future versus.
That's very good. Very good. Yeah, you could.
But,
you could say I wish. So it's like, you're really wonderful. I wish that when we went to these events, I felt better. I felt more comfortable. Mm-hmm. Are you
That's
open? Yeah. Are you open to the idea of brainstorming how we can work it out in a way that will work for me? Because right now it might work for you, but it doesn't work for me. It makes me feel sad and lonely I feel totally like a third wheel with my own husband, and that doesn't feel comfortable to me. So thank you. That was great. That was a great question. Awesome. You can say things like how important loyalty is to you. You can say that. Some of it depends. Like, in other words, if he's talking to her, he's giving her advice, or he's giving her, helping her with her business, or is he talking Torah with her? Is he talking spiritual realities with her, or lessons of life, or of life?
Yeah.
Let him know. Or if he is giving her lessons of life, whatever advice he's giving her, whatever. It depends on how intimate that is. But you can say, you were sitting there, you're having a conversation with her about her past boyfriends. It made me uncomfortable. Or if he's having a conversation with her about his business and maybe where she should go look for a job or something like that. Say, the subject matter was nice, but it just went on forever. Communicating these things are very, very helpful in having him understand your feelings. And here is the trick. Tell him listen, I don't want to nix this and say never or whatever. That's not, I don't think that's very nice or very helpful. But I have a few guidelines that if we can go by these guidelines, I think I will feel comfortable with it. So number one, when you are having these conversations with the woman, these are some tips. You can write them down. If this fits your situation, you should write these tips down and implement them and say, make these kind of your criteria to discuss with your husband. So number one is that if you're having a conversation with a single lady, that you make some effort to include me. So, you're talking about how you use shoe polish, and you put the shoe, and does anyone polish their shoes anymore? People just throw them away and go buy new ones, right? Hello.
There's Schuber now.
What?
It's Uber for shoes.
No way. No way. What's the name? I'm putting it over that.
Schuber.
That is. They're going to get sued by Uber. They're going to. That's it.
Maybe it's part of Uber. I don't know, but it's
That's
they pick up your shoes and
okay, to the cobbler. Remember the cobbler? You guys remember the cobbler? Okay,
they
so
do it for
whatever.
you. So
Anyway,
no
I'm
one's
paying for
polishing
shoes. I
shoes.
must have a foot fetish. But anyway, so he's teaching her how to polish the shoes.
Yeah.
And dear, you tell your husband this. Turn to me and say, hey, my wife polishes them left to right. I polish them up and down. Whatever. Include me. That's number one. Number two. The other dear husband, please make sure that the other woman always knows I'm your main focus of your life. So whatever conversation you're talking about, that you say, yeah, oh, my wife does this, my wife does that, throw me in there a lot. So the first one was including me, including me meant sort of saying, asking me my opinion. Like, do you think I should polish the shoes this way or that way? Include me in the conversation. The second one is to reference me and to let them know that no matter what, I'm the center of your life. Like when your back's to me, the single woman, and I'm back here and not included in the conversation, that is sending a message to that woman that I'm not important to you. I'm like dispensable. You can be with me anytime, so who cares, Okay. And then the last thing is that the minute I give you a nudge with my elbow, with my foot, with kicking you under the table, whatever, giving you a bruise, whatever it is, maybe make a thing like, okay, dear, like whatever. When I give you that signal, you have like 30 seconds to say, oh my gosh, we forgot. We have to be somewhere. We've got a plane to catch. We have, dear, would you like something to drink? Why don't we go up and get a drink? Like, it's over. Like, knowing that I have that safety to stop it at any time would mean the world to me. So you give this communication to him. Again, you're not making you right and him wrong, which is going to set up a battleground, okay? You are giving him a clear communication on what you need to feel close to him, what you need to feel trust and not feel like you're betrayed. The other thing, you have to realize you have to cut him a lot of slack for compliance, because this habit has been, I don't know how long you've been married or whatever, but 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, this is how he does it. He goes to the events and he helps the single people. And like, maybe he's been doing, even when he was single, maybe that's what he was doing. And he's just carrying on. And now you're an appendage, to his social interactions, So he needs to realize things have to change. It will take time. Cut him a lot of slack and don't go ballistic or what's the word the first lady said, blow a gasket. Don't blow a gasket about, him not complying well enough. As long as you see that he's making efforts. If he isn't, sit down and have a big conversation with him again. If he's making little efforts, praise him and thank him. If none of the efforts are working and every time you go, it's just a misery, a little bit of annoying news, don't go to events. Like, that's it. Like, or before you go to an event, let's say you sign up for a thing and whatever, say, can you please seat us where there's just couples, although he might do it with a married woman also, I don't know, but she mentioned single women. Or go early and try and scope out or find a guy, one of his guy friends. Maybe you're not crazy about the wife, but so what? You spend time with the wife while he spends time with a guy. You sit him next to that guy that that they're going to end up talking about fishing the whole time or Torah the whole time, whatever they talk about, plan ahead so that you don't put yourself in that miserable position. And again, if nothing works, you just have to say, when your husband says, oh, we got invited to such and such a thing, say, I know it's not, I really don't want to go. If he asks you, why not? You could tell him, unless you think it's going to backfire. You have to really manage you have to know your husband well. You could say, every time we go, I just feel so ignored. It just hurts my feelings. Why do that? And, oh, no, I promise this time it'll be different and whatever. Okay, and then see, but you have to have open communication about it. And again, if you're making him wrong and fighting about it, it's never going to go well. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Okay. I feel like my husband is betraying me with his family. He holds them in much higher esteem than he holds me. They are well known for their chesed and selflessness.
Chesed that his kindness is
yeah,
and acts of
and, yeah,
doing
acts of kindness,
charity,
charity.
and somebody needs a car here, you can take mine. Somebody like a family like that.
But I think that it's very imbalanced because they put the community over their own family needs. It's so funny because that's what I was actually going to say about this guy who's a do-gooder. Like, charity begins at home. So he should really be focusing on his wife. It's very nice that he's paying attention to all these other people. Like, his wife is the first charity. So I try hard.
Awesome.
Like
Wait, hold on, that one deserved this.
I try hard. Like pushing
Shut up
myself.
already.
Yeah,
it's way too long.
Yeah, hello. I try hard, like pushing myself to have guests, but it can never be enough because I don't host when I'm feeling exhausted or I feel the family needs some downtime. I told him I can never be as amazing as his family, and he agreed, which hurt the most. And even when I really push myself just to please him, he isn't appreciative at all. He turns around and says, "Well, that wasn't such a big deal." I feel
read that last part again.
That even when I really push myself just to please him, he isn't appreciative at all. He turns around and says, "Well, that wasn't such a big deal." I feel like I will never get his loyalty or measure up to his family. What can I do? That makes sense because for certain people, there's certain people where it's so ingrained in them to be givers and to do things, it's not a big deal for them. And there's certain people that it's a big deal. So, like, they're never going to understand each other in, like, that aspect. I know, like, there are people that just, "Oh, you need me to do that? You need me to do that? You need sure. And they don't even think twice about it. And for someone else, it's like, "You want me to do what?" And they have to think about it and analyze it. And is it going to be such a big deal for them? It's
well, the other
different mentality.
Hello, am I still here? Hello.
Yeah.
The other part about it that is so. Listen to another show so you can see I really am normal.
Yeah, how your voice really sounds like.
Yeah, right. Okay. No, but anyway, they they have a. I don't know necessarily that she doesn't feel badly about herself. In other words, she does things and he discounts them.
Right.
It's like it's not even just that.
Yeah, because she wants such a big to do. I had all these guests on. To him is like, what's a big deal? So we have 10 extra people.
Right.
Like for her, it's a big deal. For him, it's not.
Right.
Another point I just have to say is that he remembers his family not when he was young. For his wife, they may have a young family, and it's a completely different place.
For sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
Meaning his. If his mother at that same time, when he was his wife's age, probably didn't do all of the chesed and kind things
The
that she.
comparison is not a healthy place.
Exactly where we're going with this. Yeah.
When you're starting to be compared, your self-esteem is gonna drop, and that's gonna cause a lot other issues.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's no loyalty there and understanding.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the issue here. The issue that we have to deal with in this one. First of all, the game changer here is when a woman takes it upon herself to get the appreciation from her husband she needs. We've covered this in a lot of other classes. You can watch them again. But just standing on one foot, rather than waiting for him to appreciate you, it's actually prompting him to appreciate you and taking that responsibility. It's not as good as giving an A+ compliment and he just thinks you're wonderful, but saying, I did this and this and this. Isn't that great? And he's like, yeah. So this guy, when she said, I did this and this, he's like, well, it wasn't so hard. So what she needs to say, and ladies, if you need to do this with tears, be my guest. You need to say, about a month ago, you told me that it really upset you because we only have, 3 or 4 guests at a time, and you wanted more families, and you wanted whatever. And I worked really hard at changing myself to do that for you, and working harder and doing this nice thing for you. And when you said to me, it's, that's easy. My family does that all the time, and that's no big deal. Can you understand that would hurt my feelings after I really, really put in a lot of effort? Don't let him get away with it. When he says it's no big deal, or he belittles you, when he says something to you like, you're not as good as my family, right? Don't buy into his reality. You've bought into his reality. Because the truth is, we all have our strengths. You have a strength that sounds like of balance in your life. The fact that when you're exhausted and your family needs alone time, you take it, means that your children are going to grow up in a much healthier environment. I'm not comparing you to his family, and as she said, comparison. The minute you compare, that's a recipe for, your self-esteem is going to suffer. not only is your relationship with his family going to suffer, but now you feel less than. You feel less than when you were given to him by God himself. God chose you for him. So not it was disparaging, belittling you is in effect, he's belittling God, because God gave him to you, gave you to him. I mean both, but I'm just saying, he gave you to him. So he needs to step up to the mat on this one. And how you get him to do that is really critical. And again, this is the same thing with any feelings of betrayal. The most warmest way to open that door and to get the conversation going without making it offensive and so that they can hear it is with your heart of being, it's a little tough because you got to make yourself vulnerable. You got to open up and say, it really hurts my feelings. If someone said that to you, wouldn't you feel the same way that I'm feeling? Or you can say, when you told me, and you've said it a few times that your family, everyone knows your family's amazing. Like everywhere I go, now I've got your last name, and I walk in and they say, "Oh, Mrs. What's the name? Schwartz, Mrs. Schwartz. Yo, are you from the Schwartz family? You are. Oh my gosh, they're amazing." Every time that's said to me, I feel a cut in my thing because I know I'm not measuring up. You've made it so hard for me. I'm not trying to put a guilt trip on you. I'm just trying to tell you that I'm trying my hardest. I want to make you happy. My whole life is dedicated to making you happy and making a beautiful home for us and our children. And when you are comparing me to them, and when you're saying that, belittling with, even the thought that would be that's how you're seeing me, but not saying it is hurtful to me. So imagine, when you say, so anyway, what I'm saying is you're trying to speak to him in a way that he can understand how you're feeling. Is this clear?
Yeah. Aliza says, because it's always looked so easy when hubby watched his mother host, he has no idea how much is involved, how much she cooked, cleaned, etc. He's being hurtful, but he's probably just being clueless. Yeah, we actually have a whole show about that, how husbands are really clueless. It's not that they're trying to hurt intentionally. They're just,
right. They just
many
don't
times
know.
Clueless.
So you need to start telling him. You need to start saying, by the way, for the guests we had today, I had to make 14 phone calls. These ones couldn't come. That one couldn't come. This one came, but I know she didn't get along with that one, so then I had to move that one to the other week. Tell them this stuff. Say, you think it's easy? It's not easy. Yeah, it's a kind of a long-running joke where the wife they switch roles, and the husband has to watch the kids all day, and like by 2:00 he's like, "Get me out of here!" Yeah, 11:00, 10:15. Yeah. So I mean, you got to tell him, and if you tell him in a mean way, he's going to say, "Oh, come on." If you tell him like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe it," listen, I just need you to say, "Oh, you poor thing." By the way, everyone has to have a friend when you're having a tough day. You need to have a friend where you can say, "I need you to say, oh, you poor thing," and then they say, "Oh, you poor thing," and you say, "Thank you so much for understanding." Okay, so a husband isn't really that good at "oh, you poor thing," because like, "Oh, fix it. Well, you should have done that. If you hadn't done that in the first place, then that wouldn't have happened." Whatever. Not as good as women. So you need to have a friend that says, "Oh, you poor thing." But for this thing, you say, "Listen, I want you to know I had such a tough day. It's time getting these guests together, whatever. I just want to rattle off what I did. So at the end of it, you won't say, 'Oh, but it's no big deal.' It's a big deal." And then rattle it off to him. So here's two things. One is if he starts to fix, you say, "You don't need to fix it. You don't need to, I'm just telling you." Again, you don't want to be a complainer in the marriage, but at the same token, you have to be appreciated. We have a lot of stuff about appreciation. Look it up in the other shows. But getting, I think we have a show called Getting, what is it? Getting the appreciation you need. Watch that show because it's crucial. And women walk around with completely empty buckets of appreciation buckets, and they are upset and sad and miserable in their life. They're not knowing why they're not feeling. It's because their appreciation bucket is not filled, and they're mad at their husband for not filling it rather than taking the initiative and getting it filled. And there's lots of ways to get it filled, which are outlined there. Okay. Let me just make sure. Okay, to have him understand that his telling you his family's amazing and you're not, he has to get that is, what's the opposite of motivating? Discouraging. Yeah, but like even more than discouraging, like stops you in your tracks, freezes you. deflates you. Yeah. It's like, remember when we were talking about how if a person doesn't have motivation, like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, right? It's not really motivating, but like, if you do this, your husband will behave this way. If you do this, you'll get more money. If you do this, it'll be good for you because you'll have more shoes or more wardrobe, whatever. So same thing with your husband. If you tell him, listen, it makes me feel badly when you say, when you compare me to your family. Then he's thinking, okay, I shouldn't compare. I should or shouldn't compare you to my family. Not so motivating. If you tell him, when you give me praise, it makes me want to do more for you. When you tell me that I'm not as good as your family and I'm not as amazing, it's like, why even try? I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying human nature. I need more praise from you. I need more building up rather than comparing me and tearing me down. Hopefully he'll get it because he'll see. Instantly, he's not stupid. He wants, it's in it for him. The other thing you have to examine, and this is the last point here, unless we have other questions, and you guys can also think of questions on our Facebook, Instagram, is that if you had a history of being rejected, never being good enough, like say your parents or prior friendships, whatever, you feel like you're not good enough and you can never, what's that saying? Hold on a second. It goes, I said it last week, it was so good. You thought I was going to reject you. You expected me to reject you, and then you made sure I did. Mm-hmm. So you have to examine yourself and look inside and see, is there a part of you? I'm not trying to blame the victim. I'm just saying, is there a part of you that is suddenly, subtly, you want him to reject you. You want to feel like, he never loves me the way I want to be loved, or he's never happy with me, or whatever. Not because that's good and healthy for you, but because it's a past dysfunctional habit that feels familiar. There's a huge difference. If you can do the introspection to understand that there could be subtle things you're doing to sort of, push him to reject you, because then you have a familiar feeling of feeling rejected or less than, or your low self-esteem. Maybe you're bullied as a kid. We're going to actually do a show on bullying, how to deal with childhood bullying as an adult. We're going to, coming up in a few months. But let's say you had that and you were bullied as a kid. So now you kind of want your husband to reject you because it's familiar, not because it's healthy. So look at yourself, see what patterns you might have that cause you to continue instigating him or making him feel badly. If you understand that, then you can kind of break free of that and move forward in the relationship to the next level, which is him totally getting. This is the end game that you're looking for. You want him to totally get how awesome you are and how you were a gift to him from Hashem, and whatever your strengths, whatever your deficiencies are, you're working on them, but they were given to him by God himself. So he's got to, he can't just say, he can't put you down because of it. He's got to work on it. He's got to work with you, and it's his job to build you rather than tear you down. Okay, that's our betrayal. Is any other questions? Anybody?
No, you got some hearts on that.
Thank you. Okay. All right, everybody. That's this Leah Richeimer with the Ladies Talk Show. Frog today. I'm a frog. We'll see you next week. And the homework for the week is to actually do some self-introspection and see if there's anything you're doing to let's not instigate. What's that word? Anything that you're doing that encourages your husband to not treat you well. Look at that. That kind of introspection is often very, very valuable in your ability to interrelate. Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.